viewers your reaction to this judgment by the Western Cape High Court?
Well, we're disappointed and very shocked at this outcome because we've stated categorically that Parliament has got its own laws. It draws its powers from the Constitution. And so therefore, as per the powers and privileges vested in Parliament, members of Parliament are allowed and can preside and participate in any committee. Now, what we're finding here with this judgment, which is something that we raised, is that now you're having courts that are now making their own rules and making their own laws and infringing and overreaching in decisions and parliament processes as per a process that was followed to elect Dr. Hlophe to participate in that JSC committee in the first place. And we stated categorically that what we're starting to see is a pattern of judicial sovereignty. And this is more so of a case, like we've been calling as Umkhonto weSizwe as a party, that we need parliamentary sovereignty because this, again, infringes on the will of the people. It's people that voted for Umkhonto weSizwe, and by virtue of that, Dr. Hlophe is a representative of the people in parliament and therefore is allowed to participate in that. So we can't have situations where now courts are going to be overruling decisions that are taken by parliament. Parliamentarians are lawmakers. Judges preside over laws and effectively are just there to implement, not even implement, interpret the law. So this, quite honestly, is an infringement on our democracy. It is an insult to those that died for this democracy. It is an insult to the voters that voted from Umkhonto weSizwe.
Yeah, I'm keen to hear just your thoughts on some of the wording of this judgment, and I want to read out a little bit of it. The National Assembly failed to properly exercise its discretion, thereby compromising the integrity of the judiciary. Appointing an impeached judge to the JSC undermines the very body entrusted with upholding judicial integrity and accountability. I mean, the words judicial integrity and accountability, very strong and direct, Mr. Ndhlela.
Well, it also refers to, eroding public confidence, and that him sitting there would be eroding public confidence in the judiciary. Now, already, by virtue of a man who is 80 years old, whose rights were infringed upon and incarcerated without his day in court, that alone is a clear indication that this judicial system has eroded public confidence. That decision eroded public confidence. How is it that you infringe on an 80-year-old man's rights for them to, preside over a case and have his day in court, having a constitutional court, in this case, arrest him and incarcerate him for 3 months without an option to him to protect himself? So if we're going to be talking about erosion of public confidence in the judiciary, let's start there. There shouldn't be Zuma laws, Hlophe laws, and Hlamulo laws. The laws need to apply to every single South African, and therefore the Bill of Rights must be demonstrating all those decisions that are taken by the courts.
Yeah, can we go back to the heart of the matter, though, Hlamulo, and go all the way back to 2008, and just at the moment, how the party then deals with, at the heart of it, an impeachment because John Hlophe attempted to unlawfully influence judges in the highest court in the land to rule in favor of the former president. Do you consider that an erosion of the public trust, as you say?
Dr. Hlophe, in this case, all he did was to say, meaning, it is now up to yourselves to preside over this. He was effectively recusing himself from the process. So how can that, in actual fact, be him wanting to interfere in a case when he's actually handing over? And it was for those words that he's now being seen to, or said to have influenced the process. That is a clear indication that there's nothing more than just a frivolous attempt to, again, attack a black professional, as we've seen in this case. Again, let's not forget that Dr. Hlophe, when he was judge president, wrote a serious report in terms of the racism and the shenanigans of the Western Cape High Court. Now, the DA knows very well that he has a lot of insight in what happens in their court. And the last thing they would want, as the DA, is for him to expose the kind of people that they want appointed in that court. And they knew that him presiding over that would have exactly done that, exposed the DA's candidates and therefore, led them to not being appointed. The DA wants to control the Western Cape come hell or high water. That's why strategically they're going to want to ensure that they have a lot of influence in terms of who presides over that court, because they know Parliament and all the farms, all the Western Cape agenda resides, and the future of that province is determined by what decisions are taken by that court. So, of course, Dr. Hlophe is not a person that they wanted to preside in any interview. And let's not forget, let's inform South Africans, that presiding over interviews does not mean you're appointing them. Dr. Hlophe was going to sit there and just interview. The president is the one that makes his decision and appoints at the end of the day. So what exactly would have been the issue of him presiding there when he's actually more qualified than anyone else that would sit there and preside over those interviews? More so, more informed about this judicial system with over 30 years of experience.
You've got I'm just looking at the statement coming out from the MK party. As the MK party, we will not allow a white-dominated and racist party like the DA to have the final say as to who may or may not represent our party in the JSE. And then you go on to say, If indeed the Constitution allows for a return to apartheid, then it is the Constitution which must be urgently changed. I mean, that is incredible use of words, to be light, right? That a Western Cape High Court that rules that an impeached judge cannot sit on the JSC is a return of apartheid in Hlamulo.
It is indeed a return of apartheid, because these laws are not African laws. These are laws, and these laws in the framework of this constitution is based on Roman Dutch law, which does not represent any Africans or South Africans. So therefore, we need a law system and a legal system that is, which is what we've been calling for from day one in terms of our people's mandate, and that.
One, hello, Orabile. Thank you for having me, and hello to your viewers here at Newsroom. The sense is one that we welcome as the Democratic Alliance, and I think the rest of South Africa also welcomes, because this is a victory. It's not only a victory for the judicial system, not only a victory for the way Parliament is supposed to look at itself and conduct itself moving forward, but it's certainly a victory for the people of South Africa. People of South Africa who need a representation that is sober in all levels of representation. And so we're very happy that it is section 165 of the Judicial Authority that's found in Chapter 8 of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. Subsection 4 of it makes it very clear that organs of the state, I want to read it here, organs of the state, through legislative and other measures, must assist and protect the courts to ensure the independence, impartiality, dignity, accessibility, and effectiveness of the court. And this is the grounds upon which we have argued as the Democratic Alliance that we cannot have a former judge who's impeached because of his misconduct that has been proven in tampering with the outcomes and the dealings of the court, serving in a Judicial Service Commission, a commission that is very important, that deals with important matters such as the appointment of other judges across the land. So it is a victory that we are happy and welcome as the Democratic Alliance, and we're happy that we fought in the right direction. We were able to uphold the dignity and the effectiveness of the court system.
What does a decision like this, however, say perhaps to Parliament? Because it's the acting of Parliament that even created this to begin with, and of course then having to take it to courts ultimately to then be reversed. What does this say to Parliament, do you think?
It says Parliament must understand that it does not live in isolation to this book, Arabile. The Constitution of the Republic of South Africa is the supreme gospel law that governs the workings of Parliament. So any decision that Parliament takes must be consistent with the provisions of the courts. Yes, of this Constitution. Yes, we never imagined that we would have a disgraced judge moving from one arm of state, being the judicial arm of state, and now participating democratically in the legislative arm of state. But even that, as it is, of making sure that it conducts its ways its orders or its affairs in a way that is consistent with the Constitution. We didn't even need to go to court for Parliament to know that there is such a provision in the Constitution of the Republic, given that they are there to uphold the Constitution and give effect to it. So we're happy, and we also understand that in the past, Parliament has had a very lazy approach to how it upholds the Constitution, given the majority authoritarian rule of the ANC in the past. But gone are those days now. We're never going to have a Parliament again where people get to hear from Luthuli House what they must think and whether it's inconsistent, even if it's inconsistent with the Constitution. Parliament must now be able to take ownership of the fact that they were wrong in not applying themselves properly as far as the Constitution is concerned, and make sure that we don't have the same problem moving forward. But as far as the Democratic Alliance's participation in this case is concerned, we're elated that the rule of law has been upheld. Yeah,
let's talk about the credibility of the judicial system, which you continue to stress test, of course, as your party as well then. Does that remain intact, do you feel? Does that continue to remain in such a manner that it upholds those values that you continue to speak of, taking this decision, but previous decisions into account as well?
Yeah, I think we still have confidence in the courts, 100%. I mean, this case itself is another opportunity for us to see that the courts work. And that is why, as the Democratic Alliance, we timelessly, in cases where there is a constitutional question or a quagmire politically, we take it to the court so that we can get the resolution that is important. Particularly because the principle of democracy says that we can't have arms of state operating in complete silence. They're supposed to operate independently, yes, but essentially they're intertwined and they derive their mandate from one book, and that is the Constitution of the Republic. So if the legislative arm of state, the executive arm of state are in contravention of the provisions of the Constitution, then we're very happy to have a court system that works to make sure that at least the judicial arm of state is able to correct then the misgivings of the executive and the legislative arm of state.
Yeah, do you have a suggested person then to hold that position then at the JSC? Would you be putting that forward as the DA for a recommendation of sorts?
That decision hasn't been taken yet. We haven't sat as the DA to say this is who we're going to delegate there. You would know that during the process of nominations for political parties, we nominate.
All right, for all those who don't know what was happening here, Mr. Hlophe, you remember that he was a judge in Cape Town and stuff like that. So there was something that he said, I think during the Zuma trial and not trial, Zuma case, whatever. So when the MK party won, not won, but when they got to parliament, they had to choose somebody to stand for them in the JSC. Okay, so they chose Mr. Hlophe. So the DA, they didn't want that to happen. So what they decided to do is to go to court just to stop Mr. Hlophe from going to the JSE. Now, what happened was, obviously, afterwards, we all remember that every party in parliament, they choose someone to represent them. So when Mr. Hlophe was chosen, the parliament actually agreed with agreed to Mr. Hlophe being appointed, because that's what happens actually in parliament. If you've got a party that is part of the parliament, they have to choose. So, and then the parliament, they have to approve. They don't have a choice because it's democracy, right? Now the DA, they didn't want that. So when the court things happened and everything, so I guess now Mr. Hlophe lost, and then he's not going to the JSE. So you can see that the MK party is not happy as expected, and also the DA is happy as expected. So I did say in my other video when I was talking about this, that the MK party is going to lose it, and they lost it, because I don't see them winning it, okay? I wasn't seeing them winning it. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe and like. Sharp, sharp, afetu.